Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to The Ray Taylor Show, where I bring you the reviews on the latest movies and TV shows, as well as classic and foreign films. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this podcast, I'll be talking about all things film and television. Whether you're looking for a new show to binge or want to know if that blockbuster is worth the trip to the theater, or just want to hear my thoughts on a classic or foreign film, I've got you covered. So join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes, and let's dive into the world of film and television together. On today's episode, I am talking about the follow-up to the absolutely fun action movie. I am talking about Extraction 2. Just hit Netflix, came out this year, obviously 2023, directed by Sam Hargrave, written by Joe Russo, Andre Parks, and Anthony Russo, the Russo brothers, starring Chris Hemsworth, as well as many others. It's Idris Elba shows up in this movie as well. A great movie. I absolutely loved the first Extraction movie. Such a fun action movie. A lot of great fight scenes. A lot of intense moments. A lot of long takes. There's an amazing long take that takes place in the first film that I absolutely loved. But Extraction 2, after barely surviving his grievous wounds from his mission in Dhaka, Bangladesh, Tyler Rake is back, and his team is ready to take on their next mission. As I said, I was a huge fan of the first movie. I was really hoping that they would do more. The way they ended the first film, it was mildly ambiguous. You don't actually see Tyler Rake, which the worst part, I would say, about these movies is that Chris Hemsworth's character is Tyler Rake. Aside from Tyler Durden, Tyler's not necessarily a name of somebody that I would assume to be this type of a character. The only Tylers what I think of when I hear the name Tyler, by the way, I don't even know anybody named Tyler. So apologies to anybody out there who is named Tyler, but it feels like a name of somebody that plays golf, right? Their parents have money. They live in a gated community. He has his golfing outfit, goes out with his golfing buddies. That's what I think of when I hear Tyler. Wears polo shirts a lot of the time, maybe mildly racist. I don't know. But kind of a strange name, in my opinion, for this action hero guy. But regardless, still a great movie. And I rewatched the first film in preparation for this. It had been a while. I remember really liking it. I did a review of that movie whenever it came out a few years ago, and was excited, hoping that they would make another one. Thankfully, they did. I really enjoy this, and in this movie, it feels like they're setting up for it to be a franchise, really kind of solidifying his crew in some ways, which isn't really much of a crew as it is him and his sidekick now, the woman that Nick in this film, right? Nick Khan. So I enjoyed this movie. I did enjoy this movie. There are aspects of this movie I feel didn't necessarily work as much as they did in the first movie. In this movie, they're definitely trying to do some of the same things that they did in the first movie, like a long action set piece made to look like a single shot, as is in the first movie, a very intense action set piece of Rake and the person he's trying to extract going through an apartment complex. There's a car chase. The camera's going in the car, out of the car. It's amazing. It is an amazing action set piece that just keeps going on and on and on. And they try to do that in this. They do that in this movie as well. but it takes place in a prison. They're extracting people out of a prison, and it's not as exciting necessarily. It definitely gets better towards the end of that set piece, but it almost felt like they were just doing it because they did it in the first one, whereas it didn't hit the same way as it did in the first film. But despite some of the moments in the beginning of this film feeling like they're just trying to do the same type of beats that they did in the first film, I think this movie ends up being just as good as the first movie, and amazing. So I highly recommend it. I would say this is probably one of my, aside from like maybe a John Wick or Mission Impossible type of a franchise, I would say this is probably one of my favorite action franchises going right now. By far my favorite Chris Hemsworth character, far more than Thor, which I only really like partially enjoy that character in the Marvel films. Not a big fan of the movies featuring Thor. The Thor films, aside from like Ragnarok, was kind of fun. But so definitely a character way better than that Spiderhead movie that he was in, which I felt was absolute garbage. But this, I think he's badass as Rake, and the action is amazing. They're doing really interesting things, as in addition to the long action set piece takes. And also this movie definitely had more CG, which is kind of a bummer. Like, there's a lot of stunts. It felt like a lot of the stunts were done by stunt people in the first one, where there's a lot of things that happen that are clearly CG, which is always a bummer. But they definitely stepped up in a lot of ways, in a good way, I would say, in this movie. So I enjoyed all of that. And I would say by far the best action franchise in Netflix. I mean, they've had The Gray Man. I actually kind of enjoyed The Gray Man far more than I enjoyed Red Notice, which apparently Red Notice was very successful, and they're going to be doing more of those. Red Notice just kind of highlighted how not great of an actor The Rock is, and just how kind of nothing Gal Gadot is. So not a fan of Red Notice. Kind of enjoyed The Gray Man. Definitely some visually exciting moments in The Gray Man. The name is a little kind of boring, but by far Extraction, my favorite Netflix action series for sure, or movie franchise. So all that stuff, really enjoyed. I highly recommend if you're looking for a good action movie. And as I said, I did rewatch the first film because I remember liking it. I remember being excited at the possibility of a sequel. I was really hoping there would be a sequel. So when I saw this was coming out, the sequel, I was excited to see it, and wanted a refresher. I remember liking it, but I wanted to why did I like it? And of course, hand-to-hand stuff is great. The camera moving to capture the action moments. I thought the way the fight scenes are filmed in the first movie are so good. So good. The camera work in the first movie is so good. And I don't necessarily think this one's worse. It's just it's visually not as exciting. I mean, even the location is very kind of, it's snowing. I think it's like in Russia or somewhere around that area. Snowing, a lot of grays, a lot of just kind of very toned down, where the previous film was more like deserty, like kind of India adjacent type of, I don't know exactly where Bangladesh is. That India? It's showing my ignorance. But visually, I thought the first movie was better, from the color palette to the action set pieces. Just a lot of it. But this one does some interesting stuff. I just think the location of it is just kind of, everything kind of looked, I don't know how to explain it. Like, everything's cement, and it's just like, I don't know. It just wasn't as visually exciting, I would say. But still some amazing action set pieces in this movie. In the first film, the super long car chase, right? You have this car chase where the camera's going inside the car, outside of the car. You have then it going through an entire apartment complex, jumping to different rooftops, back down to the street, more hand-to-hand fighting, people getting hit by cars back and forth, right? Camera's still following along with the action as, you know, Rake and the person he's extracting in the first movie get in a truck, and it like ends with the truck blowing up. Very similar type of a thing in the sequel as well. But that action set piece in the first film was like mind-blowing. It was like, it was so good. And trying to capture that magic again, I don't think they did, but there's still a lot of great moments in this sequel. The end of the first movie is really great too. You have his woman partner Nick killing the bad guy in the first one, right after the very end of the first one, where the boy was extracted and survives. He's going swimming, and you see him like kind of meditating at the bottom of the pool, like Rake did at in the beginning of that movie. And when he comes out, looking in the direction of what we assume to be Rake, but you can't see, he's blurry, so it's like ambiguous whether he actually survived. But it clearly, it felt kind of more obvious than I think some people thought it was. I don't know. I loved it. Loved the first one, right? And this second movie, the sequel, shows him how he survives, right? His crew kind of pulling him out of the river, him like kind of recuperating in a coma. So it kind of is a nice continuation of the first movie. It's not just like, hey, he's better now. Like, it actually takes the time to show him recouping and like from a coma, then when he wakes up and, you know, starts to rehab and struggle and trying to like kind of like thinking he's going to retire. They even get him a house, all these things, but then he gets, he gets hired to do another extraction, right? Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about, are you a fan of art, movies, and all things entertainment? Then you need to check out youtube.com/inspired disorder. Our page is jam-packed with all kinds of great content, including making of videos of the many faces, an ongoing art series of abstract ink paintings. But that's not all. We also feature daily episodes from The Ray Taylor Show, a podcast that brings you movie reviews, TV show reviews, episode recaps, opinions on news and entertainment, and much more. There's also a weekly diary and top 5 movie rankings of a variety of categories. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got how-to videos covering all kinds of topics. So why wait? Head on over to youtube.com/inspired disorder and start exploring the amazing content we have to offer. And now back to the show. And there are some dumps. I guess I'm just going to get into spoilers. Should I? I think I should just get into spoilers. I mean, there's a lot of great action set pieces, I should say. I do want to talk about specifics of this movie, the specific action set pieces. Idris Elba shows up in this movie as kind of like a handler type of a character, the guy who's hiring Tyler and his crew to do this extraction, and then setting up for like, hey, we've got more jobs for you at the end of this one. So I'm excited that it's kind of also adding some kind of infrastructure to the franchise to make it so it can keep going on. I appreciate that as well. But there's aspects of this I didn't like. There's aspects of it I really did like. So I do want to get into spoilers. This is a great, fun action movie. And such a simple premise, like, oh, he's being hired to extract people, and in every extraction he is faced with constant threats of people not wanting him to extract the person. And then you have the story of why these people are being extracted, not as necessary, not as big of a part of the movie, right? But setting it up enough to where, okay, you're seeing the motivations that these people have. So I think it's solid across the board, but I think this is a franchise that excels with doing action sequences that are interesting, fun, new, which is kind of tough to do new action set pieces. In a world where we have John Wick, in a world where we have like all kinds of superheroes, obviously all the action movies from the 90s, everything that Jackie Chan has done, it's like hard to come up with inventive and new ways to shoot action. And I think this movie does a great job at really packing in the action. The fight choreography, it is just like the pacing is just like non-stop, which I love it. I love the non-stop action ride. This one, I think, strays off the path a little bit as far as believability with some of the things that happen, but I'll get into that in spoilers. So, spoilers from here on out, you've been warned. So, like I said, so he's extracting this family that's in a prison. So this guy is in a prison, and he made a deal to have his family with him in a prison, which seems like a horrible deal for his family, and is the reason those are the people that Rake is going to extract, this family, because apparently Rake's ex-wife is sisters with the wife of this evil guy, which is kind of crazy. Like having that kind of connection in order to, I mean, it doesn't, I don't know. It seems like a lot of unnecessary stuff, but because of that, we do get to learn more about Rake's previous life, obviously, that he was married at one point. The kid that he envisions in the first one, we get more of that story in this movie. So because of that connection with his ex-wife and this person, it allows us to learn more about her. So I guess that it justifies itself. So they're in the prison, which just seems ridiculous, right? Somehow they've made it so the family is in there, and he's got like a young daughter and like a teenage boy, and then his wife. And it's like it's not like they're in a cushy prison. Like they're still in a prison, but his family's there with them, and his sentence is being extended another 10 years or whatever. Inside the prison, they have slap fights, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. It's this whole slap fight thing that seems to have like gotten popular in the past few years, especially with Dana White purchasing this slap fight competition or whatever. It just seems like a ridiculous, like it takes all kind of technique out of just people getting concussions, right? As opposed to like mixed martial arts or boxing, where you actually have to learn skill, a lot more skill than just to stand in front of somebody and slap them until somebody gets knocked, until somebody receives enough brain damage to pass out, right? And just absolutely stupid. But they're, for some reason in this prison, they do slap fights, which is dumb. Didn't like that. I do like that they showed the recovery of Tyler Rake going through rehab, right? Like he doesn't just wake up from a coma and he's ready to go. He's not Action Jackson, right, when he wakes up from the coma. I like the kind of grounded aspect of that. Them getting him set up in a house in Austria to like, so he's away from everything, so he can rehab, just like quote unquote retire. Then Idris Elba coming to hire him. Love Idris Elba. Wherever he shows up, I enjoy him. Him in this is kind of cool, right? He's the handler. He's the guy that's hiring him, and then comes at the end of the movie, is there again to like gets him out of prison and his partner out of prison to do another job. But when he extracts this family, they're annoying. The reason the family is in the prison doesn't entirely make a whole lot of sense. And when they get extracted, these kids, the girl has a toy that makes sounds for some reason. Obviously, it's, gives away their position at one point when she drops it. The boy constantly complaining about being pushed around. When he's being extracted from a prison that he doesn't want to be in, by the way. But he's complaining that the guy who is risking his life to get him and his family out of this prison is like pushing him out of the way or guiding him to where he needs to go to get out of this prison. It's just like not the time to be a little whiny brat, I would say. So annoying, this kid. Obviously, this kid makes a lot of bad decisions in this movie. They go into a room that's full of guys, and it's the thing that you see in action movies, and you don't see it necessarily as much as you used to. Definitely an action movie trope of the 90s, especially in like martial arts films where people take turns, right? You have one guy in there with a gun, and it's full of like 20 guys, 20 other guys, and they are taking turns trying to get the gun away from him. Instead of just mobbing him, they're taking turns. There are moments where they do mob him, and then that opens up into like a bigger, when they get into the kind of the yard, I guess, in the prison, and there's just like fights breaking out all around. That finally makes that whole one shot in this movie doesn't get interesting until they get out into the yard, because it's just, in the first movie you have them going through these apartments and things like that. There's like visually there's a lot of different and interesting things they're going in and out of, whereas this, they're just going through corridors of a prison. So it's like, just empty cement hallways. It's just very visually just very like bland, I would say, in this movie. So by the end of that one take, I think it gets more exciting, especially once they get out of the prison. In the yard, the fight scenes are pretty great. When the husband tries to stop them, and you have Rake fighting the husband, splitting his hand, like the visual of people getting their hand like split, like a hot dog that's been in the microwave too long, is a visual I've seen in a lot of movies recently. I think the most recent was Men, where there's a guy, many characters in that have their hand split down the middle. But it's like a visual I've seen a lot in the past year, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if it's just like somebody modeled that and they're just using that 3D model in all of these movies because they have it. But kind of a crazy move. Definitely in those fight scenes, seems a lot more CG is used as opposed to just, people actually fighting in the first one. At least it seemed like that in the first one. And then when they get in the yard, the choreography really shines. The constant fighting. The moment Rake gets hit in the head with like a brick, and then from that moment the camera is like locked on him in a very cool way. Like going from this chaos and insane choreography of all these different fights going on, and Rake fighting all these different people that come into the thing, and then from that chaos for him to get hit in the head, and then for the camera to then just lock in on him. So it's like when he moves, the camera tilts along with him. Very interesting stuff. And then there's a Molotov cocktail, which catches his arm on fire, so he has some punches with the flaming fist. Like it definitely is a one take that started off boring and got more and more exciting as it went on. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to talk about, are you looking to add some unique and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor. That's me. These abstract paintings on paper explore the endless possibilities of the human face, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Now you can bring these stunning and thought-provoking pieces into your own space with high-quality prints and t-shirts featuring designs from the Many Faces series, or take home a one-of-a-kind original piece for your collection. Don't miss out on this opportunity to add some original and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com to browse and purchase original artworks, prints, and t-shirts from the Many Faces series today. And now, back to the show. The bulletproof glass in these cars was really cool, was very interesting, like something that I don't think, and we've definitely seen, there's definitely been movies with like bulletproof glass, but the way it's expressed in this movie I thought was really cool. Definitely some more CG moments with some of the motorcycle crashes. Rockets, there's a lot of grenades in this movie as well, which I enjoyed. There's a lot of fun little grenade explosions. Them going from inside the prison to their cars, and then their cars, they finally get blown up or whatever, and they're back on their feet. It is like this nonstop, still in that kind of one take, made to look like a single shot. Pretty great. And ends with a train crash. And even like on the train, they get onto a train, and then there's like this giant Gatling gun type of a thing that Rake uses. They're shooting helicopters. There's a few moments where he's being shot at, and it's like completely unbelievable that he never got hit by any of those bullets. And another thing in this movie, bulletproof vests in this movie make it so when people are shot, which are many times, people are shot multiple times in bulletproof vests, doesn't affect them at all. It's as if nothing happened. Like, these bulletproof vests are so good that they completely remove any kind of effect of a bullet hitting them at point blank range too. But definitely makes for interesting fights, right? Because it's more difficult. The guns aren't working. You got to shoot them in the right spot. And then you see the boy. Clearly, he like decides to go with his uncle, who's out to stop, right? One, to avenge his brother's death, but also to get revenge. To kill the wife who ordered this extraction, to kill Rake for killing his brother. And the boy decides to go with his uncle, and he realizes that he made a decision when he finds out that he's helping them to go kill his mom. It's just, it's the one point where it pays off him being annoying in the first part of this movie. There's a great scene where he rigs an elevator door with a grenade. I thought that was really fun. Then there's a moment when they're in a building, and there's three of them, right? There's Rake, there's Nick, and Yaz. And Yaz, I'm expecting to die at every moment. I don't remember him from the first movie. He's apparently Nick's brother. He's a scrawny dude. And they clearly kind of gave him a little thing, giving Rake the shirt when he's retiring or whatever. But I'm waiting for him to die this whole movie. Because he feels like one of those characters that like they threw in, and we get to know them a little bit, but just enough so when he does die, we feel a little bit sad for it. So I'm waiting for him to die this whole movie. But there's a point where all three of them kind of split up when they're in this building, and they're all taking on their different challenges, right? The scrawny dude, he's in a stairwell. The one hand-to-hand fight he has is against a woman, which is the only time a hand-to-hand fight would make sense for him because he's such a scrawny dude. Like, if he, like, there is, in the opposition, the people that are trying to kill them, there is a giant man, like a giant man who is one of the people that are after them. And if that scrawny dude was fighting that giant man, it would not be a fight. It would be ridiculous. So the one fight is with a woman. And eventually he does get shot, which is predictable. Because I was expecting it the whole time. You have Nick in this. The woman is amazing. I think she kicks ass. She has a lot of great fight moments. She's on the roof. She gets thrown off with this guy, and they're like, are both kind of passed out on this glass roof, and it's slightly tilted, so they're slowly sliding down. And it's a great moment where Rake goes out after having an amazing fight sequence in like this gym, and he goes out to go save her, like grab her at the last moment. Amazing that whole set piece, how that whole thing ends with them and the brother coming out and almost killing them both. Has them in a moment where Rake's got Nick in one hand, holding onto the building with the other hand, like a very cliffhanger-y type of a moment. And the brother has him dead to rights, but of course he takes his time, and she's able to wake up enough to, shoot the floor out from under. Great action sequence. Super intense. And when he goes to like this, the end of this movie takes place at like a church. Like for some reason there is a airport right next to a church and nothing else around there. But the final battle kind of starts at that airport, or there's like a hangar. It's not a big airport, a little small airport, and then this church that's being renovated. Amazing final battle in that church. Him using a grenade launcher to kind of effortlessly blow up everything, which, another aspect of the movie where it's like, I don't really think that would work that way, but it looks cool. In the church, the boy is rigged up with C4. Would have loved to see the look on the boy's face when his uncle puts the vest of explosives on him. Like this kid could not regret his decisions as much as in that moment where he's getting the C4 vest put on him. But he looks calm as a cucumber despite having an explosive vest on him. There is the fight with the final fight with the uncle versus Rake, and the dude grabs a handsaw and Rake blocks it with his forearm. Absolutely brutal. Absolutely painful to watch. There's moments where he gets a box of nails thrown in his face. It is like a brutal end fight scene between these two guys. And how it ends is pretty great too. Where they're both kind of laying on the ground and he's like, I will never stop. And he just shoots them kind of just nonchalantly. Pretty great. And then they both end up in prisons, separate prisons. But of course, Idris Elba gets them both out. Setting it up for a second movie, which I'm totally in. Super excited to see where this franchise goes. Hopefully it's in a location that's not this. I hope this is the last kind of location that looks like this one. Don't like it at all. Visually looked horrible. Make it in. Just find a better location. Like the location of this was just horrible. Was by far the worst part of it. And it's weird. At first, I was enjoying this movie, but was kind of bummed. I was like, it just felt like they were trying to do the same thing as the first one, but not as well. But definitely settles into its own. Ends up doing a lot of new stuff that I thought was exciting. Gives us some more of Tyler's backstory with his ex and his boy that had cancer. Sets up Nick as his partner in these missions. I think she is a badass as well. Right? Not at all surprised that her brother died throughout the course of this movie. But definitely doing a good job setting the foundation for this to be a franchise of movies. Totally excited to see what they do next. Right? It's not necessarily as good as John Wick, which I haven't seen John Wick 4. I'm sure that's coming out soon. want to rewatch all the John Wick movies. I think John Wick is doing. I think this is doing a lot of similar things that John Wick is doing, but definitely in its own way, which I appreciate. Right? Definitely has the feel of a 90s action movie, right? But with a lot of modern flourishes. The one take set pieces, I think it's good, but I think it felt forced. It felt forced. It eventually got good, but it was just like, oh, this is where they're doing it. Oh wow, cement. All the corridors look the same. It wasn't as visually interesting as the first one shot. Still, very inventive fight scenes in this. Kind of a simple formula: extract people, survive the extraction. Pretty simple, and easily could put more of. It's an endless franchise. Give us little bits of story, whatever, but where it's like. The next movie, where are they going? What's the location that's going to be extracted? And what kind of new fight sequences? What kind of vehicles are going to be involved? What kind of artillery is going to be involved? All that stuff. I can't wait. I enjoy this franchise a lot. Highly recommend it. And I want to thank everybody for tuning into this episode of The Ray Taylor Show. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Extraction 2. Don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for more movie and TV show reviews. And join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform over on youtube.com/inspireddisorder. Until next time, enjoy the show. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.